you wouldn't like to be on the public domain. Members of the public are welcome to film, audio record, photograph, or tweet about the public proceedings of the meeting. But if you do so, please be considerate towards other people in the room. And if you are taking any pictures or filming, please keep the cameras pointed towards this end of the room, as members of the audience won't necessarily be given permission to have their pictures taken, whereas everybody sat around these tables has effectively done so in agreeing to take part in the proceedings. During the meeting, members of the committee will not access the internet except to access the papers for this meeting, send or receive emails, text messages or tweets concerning the business of the committee. That's so that everything that we do here tonight is transparent and everyone can understand what the basis of our decisions is. I'd like to remind the speakers to use the microphones when speaking, as it's only audio from the microphones that can be captured on the live stream. And secondly, best if you are speaking, either to keep your mobile phone off or certainly very well away from the microphone, as it can cause interference. So that brings us on to the main agenda. First of all, apologies, and the observant view might have noticed we are a little down on people today, but I've received apologies from councillors Dalton, Harper, Soanes, Tester and Whittam. And I have Councillor Seaton here, who is acting as reserve for Councillor Soanes. Unfortunately, we've had quite a few sort of incidences of sort of illness which had a bit of an impact on our numbers today. But we are quorate, we are able to take decisions today, so we are able to proceed. And it may mean that the meeting's slightly shorter than usual if there's fewer questions from committee members as a result of that. So I'm going to ask voting members to please first of all indicate you are so by raising your hand. And then I'm going to ask for everybody around these tables to introduce themselves so everybody knows who we all are. So to start with, I'm Councillor Richard Livingstone, I'm a councillor in Old Kent Road Ward, and I'm chair of this committee. And Councillor Seaton, over to you.
Councillor Martin Seaton, North Wharf Ward and reserve member.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Councillor Joseph Vanby, councillor for Chaucer Ward, and I'm a voting member of this committee.
Thank you, and I'm going to ask officers to introduce themselves, starting at my right.
Hi, Colin Wilson, Assistant Director for Strategic Development.
Kamil Dolebski, Legal Advisor.
I'm Gregory Weaver, I'm the Constitutional Clerk.
Dipesh Patel, Head of Strategic Applications.
Richard Craig from the Conservation and Design team.
Thank you. So that brings us on to our next item, which is a notification of any business which the chair deems urgent. So we have had an addendum report in 2 parts circulated. So the report itself plus an annex which sets out the recommendation on the first application we're going to be looking at this evening. And we've also had a handout showing the presentation that we'll be seeing this evening. Disclosures of interest and dispensations. Does any member of the committee wish to declare an interest or dispensation in respect of any item or issue to be considered at today's meeting? I'm going to take that as no declarations. Thank you very much. That brings us to the minutes of our last meeting that was held on the 5th of November. Councillor Vanby, I think you were there, weren't you? You were. I sent apologies. So I think I might be the only person who was actually present at that meeting. So I just checked constitutionally whether we're allowed to approve those if I'm the only person that was present, or do we need to? Okay. Are we happy that my recollection of the meeting, which accords with these, is sufficient for us to agree these minutes? All right. Thank you. That's agreed then. Thank you. That brings us on to the substantive business of today. So that's the development management items. So the next item of business concerns the determination of planning applications. I'd like to remind everyone on the committee on our guidance on how we conduct business. First of all, officers will present a report outline the recommendations and answer questions raised by the committee. Then, if present and wishing to speak, the following may then address the committee for no more than 3 minutes each. First of all, the spokesperson representing any objectors to the application. If there are any present, you by now needed to identify who is going to speak on your behalf, or if more than one person is going to speak, work out how you'll be splitting that 3-minute time slot between you. Secondly, the applicant or the applicant's agent. Thirdly, a spokesperson representing any supporters of the application who live within 100 metres of a development site. Fourthly, a ward councillor representing the area affected by the proposal. After the ward member or those nominated to speak on behalf of the objective supporters of the applicants has spoken, we will ask further questions. Particularly for applicants, it's useful if you can sit as far forward in the room as possible for your item. That's just in case we have any follow-up questions later on in proceedings. However, I should remind people that this isn't a place where we have debate between different parties. It's for the committee to hear representations and ask questions, and that's how we conduct our business. Speakers should restrict their comments to the planning aspects of the proposal and should avoid repeating any information which is already in the report. And just to remind you, as I said, it's not an opportunity for participants to cross-examine the evidence presented by other participants. As I also said, the committee will ask questions to each presenter after they've spoken, or may do. If you wish to lead us towards any questions you think would be particularly helpful to ask, please do indicate. That's particularly useful if you think the 3 minutes you have got might not be sufficient to get all your points across in the detail you would like. After receiving all the submissions, the committee will debate the application and consider the recommendation. Just to remind you, this is a council committee meeting which is open to the public, but there shouldn't be any interruptions from the audience. And finally, I'd like everyone present to know that although the planning committee comprises of members from different political parties, we are not politically whipped. Our decisions are made purely in accordance with the council's planning policy and based on the information contained within the relevant reports, together with the consultation responses and any verbal representations we hear today. How we approach these applications sets out development management item, item 6 in the agenda, and if members are happy to note that report, we'll move on to considering the applications. Are members happy? Thank you. Agreed. Okay, that brings us to item 6.1, which is a former Blackfriars Crown Court site, which is at 1 Pocock Street, London, SE10BT. And I think Dipesh is going to present on this. Over to you, Dipesh.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening. So, first application before you is Blackfriars Crown Court. Just draw members' attention to the addendum report. There are some clarifications, including on the recommendation, correction to the floor space table, paragraph 6, and some further corrections on cycle space and confirmation that the equivalence factor is 42.8%. I'll come on to that. And the correction for the play space, which on site is 373 square meters. Appended to the addendum is also a full list of conditions for the application. So the scheme before you tonight is redevelopment of the site, former Blackfriars Crown Court, for 2 buildings, a student building and a residential building, all affordable housing, and it would be all social rent. Also some flexible commercial uses on the ground floor, routes through and some public ground. So the site itself is bound by Loman Street to the north, Pocock Street to the south. It's in a mixed area. There are commercial and residential properties around. It's an aerial photograph of the site there. It's formerly Crown Courts, stopped being used as such many years ago. And just some views on this slide of the existing building. So as you can see, it's 2 to 3 stories, fairly low level for the area and this part of central London. As mentioned in the report, the site did have a previous consent. That's a CGI from the previous consent, so it's an office-led development with some community space as well within the site. That was the previous consent, and the reason for showing it to you is because it sets it's a material consideration, specifically in terms of the height and massing that that committee approved. This development here, however, is different. It is for 71 social rent homes, 600 student beds. So the social block is the one at the bottom of the image on the right, with the students at the top. Just some metrics there. So urban greening factor of 0.42, significant BNG uplift of over 250%, with SIL and Section 106 financial contributions too. So in terms of the public consultation, the applicant undertook a number of consultation events in person in April and in June, delivered newsletters to local addresses and conducted a social media campaign. For the consultation on the planning application, we put a notice in the press, erected site notices and sent letters to 945 neighbours. 3 comments were received in objection, 2 from residents, 1 from CAG, and their main issues raised are there, including the concentration of student housing, concentration of commercial uses in the area, lack of affordable housing, and under provision of play space, also impacts on daylight and sunlight. So in terms of the proposed scheme itself, as you can see from this image on page 9, there are 2 blocks, both with a courtyard typology, the student block on the left, the affordable block on the right. Importantly, this development, and as part of the site allocation, also provides a route through to the scheme that can be seen. It's named the link streets there, which would provide a public realm, also some play space. Importantly, in terms of ground floor activation, there would be commercial uses such as the cafe bar on the northwestern parts of the link street, and also for the housing block, the social rent block, all of the homes on the ground floor would be masonettes with the front doors off the streets. So for affordable housing, I mentioned that it's 42% equivalent. So the number of habitable rooms proposed is 31% of the total. So I'll just go through this slide. So there are 600 600 student rooms that are proposed, 271 social rent rooms, which the table on the top left shows. And for the 40% equivalent, that would with 600 with that amount of development, 40% equivalent would provide for 218 social rent rooms and 131 intermediate rooms at respectively 25 and 15%. So the way the methodology works, and this is based on the methodology that was introduced by the GLA a few months ago, was to look at the GDV of that notional affordable housing scheme, and then to adjust it to then adjust the balance to provide more social rent, which I'll come on to. So at 40%, the table on the top left shows that the GDV of the scheme would be gross development value would be £206 million. Now, if all of those affordable rooms were converted to social rent, the GDV, the gross development value, would drop by £4.5 million. That's the table on the top right. Shows that. Now that £4.5 million is the equivalent of 101 habitable rooms, social rent habitable rooms. So the table on the bottom left shows that that can be then counted as a credit. So that comes off the 348 to give the alternative threshold target of 206 and 47 habitable rooms for this to be 40% equivalent and to provide the same gross development value. So using that credit, the proposed habitable rooms for social rent are 271, which is 24 over the 40% threshold, which arrives at an affordable housing offer of the equivalent of 42.8% all social rent. And as you can see, the GDV is still 206 million pounds. So that's how we've come to, or the applicant has come to the offer before you. So in terms of the affordable housing block, there would be a good number of family homes, including 8 4-bedroom homes, a number of 3, 2 and 1-bedroom homes as well. The scheme has really been very well designed to provide dual aspect for all of the social housing homes, with a play courtyard and the gated entrance that comes into that courtyard where people would access their homes. So the entrance itself, apart from the maisonettes on the ground floor, would be off the Link Street, which is shown in the image on the right. So that would draw residents into the courtyard where there'd be an opportunity to engage and meet other residents before moving on to their own homes. The image on the left of the screen shows the distances between each of the blocks, each of the arms of the blocks, to show that privacy will be maintained. The homes have been developed with a deck access typology, which can be seen on the plan on the left, where the deck access has been designed to allow some privacy. So the benefit of deck access is it provides dual aspect for cross ventilation as well, but also with that separation from the deck access with the sort of light well coming through, that provides some privacy for the residents, as can be seen on the image on the right there. So the courtyard itself would provide significant amount of play space within there. The play space proposed is marked on the red on the image on the right. So there's some play space within the courtyard, some within the Link Street. There's also within Link Street play on the way, which hasn't been counted as formally for play space for this particular development, but it will nonetheless be there. And on the left is an image of the proposed courtyard. So for the student housing block, there would be just over 850 square meters of indoor amenity space, and just over 700 meters of outdoor amenity space within the courtyard and the roof terrace. Most of the indoor amenity space would be on the ground floor. So a good mix of different student homes, including 5 and 7 bed clusters, and studios and premium studios, as well as accessible studios for residents. In terms of impacts on neighbours, I mentioned the previous scheme, the Roots in the Sky scheme, an image of which is on the left of the screen. The massing there is compared to the massing before you today. On the right, student blocks on the left, affordable on the right. So as you can see, the impact would be much reduced. On the residential homes tested, the vast majority would see an improvement compared to the approved scheme. In terms of design and massing, so the affordable block has been designed to be 6 stories high, the image on the left, with a shoulder line continuing for the student, with 2 higher elements coming above that in a metal material to provide some differentiation and also some interest. Brick would be used for both, but a different typology of brick. Richard's here to answer questions on design if you have any. And that is the presentation. Officers recommend your application for approval, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Dipesh. Any questions from committee members? I'm going to just test my understanding of the point that you made on affordable housing, just so that I'm clear, because it does take a bit of scratching your head to get used to, or to get your head around. So as I understand it from slide 10, if this was providing affordable housing in the sort of usual formula we expect of 25%, social housing plus another 10 affordable, we'd be getting 218 social housing units. What we got in this case is an additional 53 social housing units above that 25% level, which is paid for by an in lieu payment that's equivalent to the remaining 17.5%. Is that right?
Effectively, so it's paid for by reducing to zero the amount of intermediate homes, and that additional to get to from 25% to 42 in this case makes up that balance.
Thank you. The other question I had,
I'll go to further clarification on that. So they've increased social rent homes and reduced the intermediate homes, basically, and that matches. Okay, good.
And the other question is just in terms of, as Richard's here and to give him something to do, I understand that part of CAG's objections were sort of on design grounds about related to the previous purpose of the building before it was a Crown Court. Is that right? And if you could explain that in a bit more detail.
The previous use before switching to the Crown Court was actually as a print works. That was given up pretty much shortly after the war, I think. So it's been a substantial time since that actually happened, and it was converted to the court, I think, in about the 60s. So I'm not sure why CAG got so excited about that, but that's their remit to do that. But we're quite comfortable with the loss. It wasn't a building that's noteworthy in terms of being a locally listed building, so we were quite happy to let that go, certainly for an improved scheme, which both Roots in the Sky and this development were better schemes than the court buildings, which was in that postmodern, slightly tacky, sorry, that's my own personal view now, which I should be giving. It had that postmodern feel to it, which didn't sit particularly comfortable in terms of the townscape.
Thank you. That's helpful. Any further questions from committee, or shall we move to the representations? Okay.
One more thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's quite maybe I've missed something, but it's quite light in terms of projected images, in terms of what it will look like. Just I don't know. Usually there's just lots more, so I can get a real feel for what the proposals are. It feels like
we have got more images in the report, but if I can take you to,
I think we've got a spare paper copy of the report. Could we hand that over to Councillor Bamby just so you can have a look? Yeah. So if it's all right with you, Councillor Bamby, what we'll do is we'll carry on. But if there are any further questions you've got that arise from that, we can take that after we've had the representations. Okay. In that case, do we have anybody present that wishes to speak in objection to the application? I've not been notified of anybody, but if there is anybody, speak now or forever hold your peace. No? Thank you. In that case, could I ask the applicants or the applicant's agent if they'd like to come forward to address us? Thank you. So, thank you very much. Just so that you know, I'm to speak, press the right-hand button on the handset. I'm going to ask you to first of all introduce yourself, and then I'll give you 3 minutes in which to present to the committee.
Thank you. I'll read from the cards because otherwise I'll go over 3 minutes. So, good evening, Chair and members of the Southwark Planning Committee. My name is Matthew Lockin. I'm the Chief Development Officer at IQ Student. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to address you today regarding our vision for Blackfriars Crown Court. Having worked previously both in private and affordable residential development and in PBSA for most of my career, this proposal is specifically exciting for me because you can deliver both tenures on the same site, so it's really exciting. IQ Student Accommodation is one of the UK's leading owners, developers, operators of purpose-built student accommodation. We've got 85 properties across the UK, 36,000 beds, and within Southwark itself, we have 424 beds, which are Paris Gardens and Bankside. So it means we've got a proven track record, both of creating high quality, well-managed homes for students, and also being responsible and experienced operator developer, offering our students their best year yet. About 12 months ago, in 2024, we acquired this site with a clear ambition to deliver high quality, well-managed student housing and much needed affordable housing in the heart of Southwark, supporting both the borough's high educational institutions and also the wider community alike. Our residential-led plans respond directly to Southwark's urgent housing needs. They are deliverable, and with your permission, we're ready to get going on site and begin construction work immediately. We're pleased to be proposing 71 new affordable homes, all of which will be social rent and include larger 3 and 4 bedroom family homes. These have been designed with the input from Sage Homes, which has a common shareholder with IQ and also with other registered providers to ensure that the scheme has future operational success. And we're working with these providers to narrow them down once we get planning consent to enter into an agreement with one provider to move forward to development of this block. Not only will the socially rented homes cater to Southwark's residentials most in need, but the provision of 600 purpose-built student accommodation beds will help relieve the pressure on traditional housing stock currently being used by students in the borough. Both of our buildings will benefit from high-quality external amenity spaces in the form of terraces and courtyards. The new publicly accessed link streaks separating the new buildings will be maintained by IQ to ensure that we remain well looked after and usable by all. And the benefits of our scheme stretch beyond the red line boundary. At consultation events earlier this year, we were pleased to hear that local people supported the introduction of the new walkway through the site and our inclusion of both a cafe and also the workspaces. Local residents are eager to see progress made on the site, which has now been vacant for 6 years. We're ready to move forward with demolition works immediately and will work to open the first social rented homes in summer 28. In conclusion, I respectfully ask for the committee's support of our application. Our proposal offers a viable, sustainable future for Blackfriars Crown Court, delivers affordable homes and meets the evolving needs of Southwark and its residents. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Any questions from members of the committee? Councillor Vanby?
Thanks for that. Sorry, what was your name again?
Matthew.
Matthew. Thanks for that, Matthew. Well done on the social rent homes. That's really welcome and positive to hear, particularly 3 and 4 bedroom homes. You mentioned talking to a lot of providers, but didn't mention them. I think it's fantastic news about the social rent homes.
Yep.
It's one thing to build them. It's another thing to find a suitable provider to manage them and speak to a lot of residents, some of our new builds, where it's amazing they're in a new council home, but perhaps if they had a better provider, they would have be living a better life and feel happier in their homes. So questions on the provider and almost kind of which providers are you looking at? What does the vetting process look like for finding the right provider? Are you speaking to residents about their experience with these providers? I think it really matters. Like I said, massive celebration, honestly, about the social rent homes, but the provider does matter so much as well.
Absolutely. And I've worked in affordable housing for many years, working in the partnerships division within Bellway Homes in terms of working with both the registered providers and obviously the residents that have gone into it. So our process is, I said, during the design stage, we were Sage Homes, which is part of has the same shareholders we do. We've been talking to them around basically their potential to take it forward and also to make sure the design of the homes through planning is actually meets the needs of their residents. We've also talked to a number of other providers. I can't give you names at this point in time. I appreciate you want names. So we've narrowed that down to 2 or 3. So once we get, but as you imagine, I can't get commitment from a affordable housing provider until basically I have a planning application. But from our perspective, that we've designed the block specifically that the affordable housing block is below 6 stories, so always 6 stories, so we don't have to go through the regulator to get the approval, and therefore we can accelerate the build of that quicker. We've already got prior notification for the demolition to make sure we demolish, and our intention is to start the site working initially first with the affordable and delivering through, and we will ensure that we get a provider that actually is a recognised provider that actually has a good credibility. These homes will be amazing. They'll be built to a high standard, and as a result of that, I think we'll find the right provider that can move forward with it. But I'm sorry I can't give you an exact name today, but I'm happy to keep you updated as we go through the process.
Thank you very much.
Can I follow up?
Yeah, please do.
This might open a whole can of worms, but on is it possible, I'm speaking to officers openly, is it possible that one of those providers could be the council? I don't know if
I'm going to ask Colin to come on that.
Okay.
Because
I mean, at the moment, I don't think that's likely because of the challenge to the housing revenue accounts. In terms of RPs, we are extending our list of approved RPs because we're getting RPs from outside London who are increasingly looking to invest in London housing. I mean, they're very good RPs. They have big stocks and estates, and when we look and we check them on the regulators' kind of assessments of how they perform as RPs. So we are trying to help developers in that sense, and it's good that we've got that interest from a kind of wider pool of registered providers. But our own financial challenges at the moment mean it's unlikely that we would become that RP in effect.
Thanks for that. And then just part B of that follow up was just on the providers. Obviously, you have your own process. Is there scope for the council having a voice or say in that process in terms of who you finalise as a
we're happy to
provider?
consult and engage with the council in terms of basically who will be providing how that works forward. We, from our perspective, deliverability is pretty key in terms of our ability to deliver this. There's lots of sites that have consent for affordable housing across the city that don't get delivered. So our finding a provider that's going to deliver for the needs of the residents is key. So happy to engage throughout the process. Thank you, Matthew.
yeah, I think it's probably worth noting that the challenges that Colin talked about for us as a council, we know that a number of housing associations have similar challenges. So it's we understand entirely where you come from in terms of that process. That's helpful. Councillor Seaton.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thank you for your presentation. Very interesting. And of course, I recall the earlier application, which is nothing to do with you, which we were very excited by, and we were assured would be delivered within the next 18 to 24 months. You used the word "we will deliver by summer 28"
Yep.
4 times in your presentation, so I was heartened by that.
Yep.
How can you be that confident? I'm just bearing in mind the current climate we're in at the moment, and
Yep.
I'm being told that it is almost impossible to deliver these schemes at the affordable home quantum levels which you're proposing today. How can we be assured that what you said here, so by summer 2028, you'll deliver these affordable homes?
So in terms of where we are our main shareholder is Blackstone. So in terms of funding, we've established our funding route, which means that we're different than lots of other developers that maybe sit here and have to try and go to the market funding. Secondly, we own the site, so it's not the site that we just take an option on and we're just trying to get a planning consent and then hopefully we can find something to do. So we've got a site. If we don't build it on it, we've got an old Crown Court that basically I can't do anything with, which is definitely not where we're going to be. So in terms of where we are, I think we're very different than probably a lot of developers that sit in front of you. We are a developer or an operator, and our business is about building and operating student bedrooms. So all I can say is everything we've done so far as a business, we've always committed and followed through because we have that investment structure already behind us before we enter into anything like this.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for your response. It's not, again, dissimilar to what I've heard previously. So I don't understand the economics that's driving you, because I think this is not only doesn't apply here, but right across London, the affordability. And what you're saying is that because you own the site and you've already secured finance, that your level of confidence you will deliver, based on the figures that have been outlined by officers here, that this is deliverable for you. Yep.
Absolutely.
Okay, but that's a promise anyway. Can I ask a question on affordability? This is coming up quite often. What is affordable? Is this affordable? Maybe I should have asked this question earlier on, but I'll ask it now anyway. This is rent plus a service charge, or will the service charge be included in the affordable rental part of the site?
Okay. So in terms of the shared ownership model, I'm not a registered provider, so I can't say. But in terms of the way that we've structured the site, is that we've made sure that any areas outside of the affordable block is basically covered by us and not covered by the registered provider. Therefore, try to keep the service charge down. I can't say how the actual structure of basically the shared ownership, the socially rented rent actually physically works from the operator we choose.
So the next truck is right. So I believe I understood what you're saying is that at this stage you're not able to determine if the rent would include service charge, or are you saying it will be service charge?
We're talking shared ownership. Are we talking socially rented, or we're talking PBS?
No, social rented.
So the social rented, basically, from my perspective, we're not a registered provider. We will partner with a registered provider that will establish basically the structure.
And therefore, if they apply rent, it'll be plus the service charge.
There's service charge applicable.
Right. I just want to be clear, and that's yet to be determined. Right.
Yes.
That's the important. It's quite the affordability, you see. And then my last question. I'm just going to congratulate you on what is a scheme that is really appealing to a broad selection of our community, and it doesn't happen very often to see a scheme like this. So it's really exciting if you deliver it.
We will deliver it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I've got a couple of questions. So first of all, and I think as people have indicated, we like the fact that this is delivering more social housing than policy would perhaps would strictly determine, but obviously it's slightly less in terms of on-site affordable housing overall, because you're not putting in intermediate housing. So I just wanted to, whilst as I said, I think I'm happy with what's being proposed, I just wanted to understand the rationale for not having on-site intermediate housing and the thinking behind that.
So one element is scale about what you can fit on the existing site, and we wanted to fit on the site what we're committed to, rather than have giving cash out that basically may or may not be spent on affordable housing. So firstly. Secondly, that the attractiveness to a registered provider of mixing tenures in a block of 71 units becomes challenging. So the initial feedback we had was that actually we don't want blocks that have got shared ownership and socially rented mixed. We prefer to have a single tenure, because of the fact you've got cores and the complicated with it. So so it's mainly around deliverability of the scheme to make sure that we can get a registered provider that's keen to take the space. If we'd mixed it up, I think we'd have really struggled to find somebody that would take it.
That's helpful, thank you. And my final question was, I quite like the walkway, I think you called it, the link between that separates the student housing and the social housing. Obviously that is, you were describing it as the public could use it, but it wouldn't be a public right of way, as I understand it. Can you just sort of tell us, would this be permanently open?
It's public accessible, and it'll be permanently open. We're not planning to close it off.
Okay.
But it's not basically in public ownership.
Yeah. Okay. So it would be,
the members of the public don't have to pay for the upkeep of that. That's part.
So it's open 24/7.
24/7. Yeah.
Thank you. That's helpful. Thank you. Right. Any further questions at this stage? In that case, you may return to the public seating area. As I said, thank you very much coming forward. I think that was very helpful for us. There may be further questions depending on what further representations we hear. Thank you. Okay, that brings us to, do we have any supporters of the scheme that live within 100 metres of the site? No? Ward councillors, we have a ward councillor in the room. Do you wish to speak on this item? That's fine. Okay. In that case, any questions for officers arising from the presentations? Any points of clarification? Councillor Seaton.
Yeah, again, I want to go back to page 10 of the presentation. I know you've gone over it. I just wanted to go over it again just to ensure I've understood it. I'm just very conscious of my question to the applicants on genuine affordability. I'm just very conscious that we have my own residents who are in affordable homes but are finding it extremely difficult to pay service charges. And I want to examine ways in which we can mitigate those service charges at this point of the process rather than later on, if possible. Can you just go over this new structure, which is one I'm still becoming acquainted with?
Sorry, I just saw somebody raise his hand from the applicant. Are you able to help us on this, sir? Do you want to? Would you like to come forward? Thank you. So yeah, if you could, so press the right hand button, and if you quickly give us your name and who you are. And then,
I'm George Basrawi. I'm head of development at IQ, working under Matt. So we've actually capped the service charge as part of the heads of terms of the section 106. So that's mentioned in the full committee report, and that's in line with what RPs expect for social rented homes. So hopefully that answers your social rented point on service charge. I'm not an expert on what the cap is, but we've agreed to in the heads of terms for the section 106 to follow the council's cap.
Thank you very much. I think that's been very useful. Thank you.
Mr. Pep was about to explain the cap.
Yeah, so the service charge is regulated by the Housing Ombudsman and the regulator. The cap is usually CPI plus 1%, reasonable endeavours clause, and the registered provider, the housing association, isn't able to charge for anything that's not directly related to the home. So as the applicant was talking about, the link streets, those areas of public realm, the social rent tenants would not pay for the upkeep. They would simply pay for the upkeep of the service charge would cover for the upkeep and works to their building and the courtyard within that.
Absolutely.
I wonder if the press could refer to the policy reference, if there's a policy reference I can look up.
There's no specific policy reference, but it has for a few years now been our practice to cap that within legal agreements.
Is that helpful, Councillor Seaton?
Typically, one relies upon a policy which is based upon our decisions. If there's a cap, it must be written somewhere. Where's it written? That's my question.
I think the issue about service charge perhaps came up after we adopted the 2022 Southwark Plan. So that's effectively us officers in US committee have asked us to look at a cap, which we have looked at, and we've been agreeing that with developers within the 106s.
Yes, you asked us to look at it when you were chair of committee, Councillor Seaton. Yeah, so it was essentially your idea.
Right, thank you. Any further questions at this point? I'm happy to open to general discussion. Yeah, at this point.
Yeah, on this specific scheme, I think I really welcome the point on getting a provider, and that's why they increase on social rent homes, because I know we've had issues before where they deliver the kind of mixed social and affordable, and then they can't get a provider because there's too few rooms. So that was really good and really positive to hear, and shows that the applicant's obviously been speaking to people, which is obviously good. I wanted to just make a point on the providers aspect. I'd like us to have, and again, we might already do this, but I'd like us to have a stronger element and say in terms of which providers get chosen for when we have social rent homes, because I just think it matters. And just my inbox says that actually in some of our new builds, some of our providers aren't living up to the task and doing their part. And so I'd like to see, you know, as council and people who know who's doing well, who's not, like, what can we do when this application comes forward and they're talking to different providers? How can we use our expertise and say actually this, etc. I didn't ask the applicant, but I wanted to know whether their student accommodation is going to be tied to a specific university sometimes, or if it's just going to be open across the board to any universities. And then just a kind of more general point, again, student accommodations, and every single planning committee is always another student accommodation. Like I said, I'm going to support this application, but just a general comment on, it's just time and time again, student accommodation is coming forward, and we have a limited space. So I just wonder when, when do we reach the end line in terms of student accommodation? And I understand all the data will suggest that there's such demand for student accommodation, etc., etc. I understand. I'm just saying, just a general point.
I guess the answer, I'll get in front of officers on this, that the borough has a target of providing 10,000 additional student accommodation units, and we're not there yet. So there is a limit, which is the target that set us, and we're not at that target. We're quite a way up, aren't we? Certainly in terms of ones that we've approved. In fact,
By when?
So it's over the plan period for the 2022 plan, which is 16 years from 2022, and it is about actual delivery. So normally, as with all the development, there will be planning permissions granted which aren't consented. And of course, we're in the process of reviewing the Southwark plan, so we will be reviewing where we got to in terms of total numbers, and we keep those constantly under review as well, in terms of both the consents that this committee is granting and also which ones are likely to come forward and which aren't likely to come forward. We would anticipate that it will level out, and there will come a point where the returns from student housing as need is met will start meaning you will see less student schemes, and of course we're going to have the impact of the mayor's proposals to accelerate housing delivery, which is in effect reducing the ask on affordable housing and community infrastructure levy for conventional housing, which is partly an attempt to tip the balance back towards conventional housing, although the unfortunate thing about that is that there will be less affordable housing, but unless there is more funding for affordable housing, that's probably the only lever the government have at the moment to affect where that balance sits.
Is that helpful?
That's the last thing on that. So the mayor has obviously decided to try and tip the balance, so I imagine we'd also want to tip that balance, perhaps. Are there ways we can tip that balance? Because obviously the mayor's using his powers to try and tip the balance. Are there ways we can tip the balance if we follow that narrative?
Fundamentally, social rented housing needs public subsidy. So its yield is very low. It's 1%. So nobody would build it, and that yield is related to rental income over time. In an ideal world, there would be more money to pay for that social rented housing, but at the moment, neither we nor the GLA have sufficient funding to provide that. There are other challenges even if you had that money, and the other challenges are the difficulty in selling private for sale housing at the moment, and these things all layer up on top of each other. In a world where that money is in short supply, the mayor is doing what he can with the money he has available to try and influence the building of more C3 conventional affordable housing. But it's worth bearing in mind that the current proposals for the mayor would deliver, if of that 20%, about 11% would be social rented. So in this instance, you're getting 31% social rented. In a kind of accelerated housing delivery world, you'd only be getting 11%. And all the members here would be completely aware that the major demand in this borough for housing is for social rented housing. So So whilst there are potential downsides for student if it's over concentrated and if it's not making it a mixed and inclusive community, I mean, the upsides are significant in the amount of social rents that can be delivered in a very, very, very challenging time. I mean, it's the worst I have ever experienced in terms of housing delivery.
Okay. Any more questions? Any comments on the application in general? Can we move to recommendation? Okay. In that case, I would like to move that we adopt the officer's recommendations as set out in paragraphs 1 to 3 of the report on pages 28 and 29 of the main agenda pack and on pages 1 to 3 of the addendum report. That the planning permission be granted subject to the conditions, the applicant entering into an appropriate legal agreement and the referral to the Mayor of London. And secondly, in the event the requirements of paragraph 1 above not being met by the 31st of May 2026, the Director of Planning Growth be authorised, if appropriate, to refuse the application for the reasons set out in paragraph 305. Does any member of the committee wish to second this? So, Councillor Seaton, thank you. We'll move to voting on this. Councillor Seaton. Councillor Vanby. And I'm Councillor Richard Livingstone. I'm also voting for this, so that is passed. Yeah, the application is granted. Thank you. Are people happy we move straight on, or do I want a comfort break on it? I'm going to allow you all right, 5 minutes. All right. item 6.2 of the agenda, which is Southwark Underground Station, which is located at the Cut, at London, Southwark, SE1 8JZ. And Dipesh, I understand you're presenting on this. Thank you.
I am. Thank you, Chair. So this is a scheme that came to this committee back in March of this year. The proposal's there before you. So 2 buildings, 15-storey student block, and a 9-storey residential block. Again, social rented for 44 homes. So committee resolved to grant planning permission for that scheme here. We've been discussing with the applicant the Section 106 legal agreement, which is pretty much agreed. Early in November, sorry, I'll just backtrack. So at the time it came to committee, Historic England were considering an application for listing the underground station, which was referred to in the report. Officers advised members about that, and there was some discussion about the potential impacts of the listing. Start of November, Historic England listed the station at grade 2. So this effectively is a supplementary report for committee members to give consideration to that material change and to give special weight to the listed status of the station. So just a very quick recap: we had 429 student rooms, some retail, floor, and 9-storey affordable housing block. There's also 15.6 payments in lieu to take it up to 40% equivalent. Also some public realm works. This was a scheme that was supported by the residents of Styles House, who were involved in some of the design work that was undertaken. So the station now is listed, and it has been listed mostly for its historical value in terms of the engineering works that were undertaken as part of the Jubilee Line extension in the 90s, but also some elements, well, mostly internal architectural elements. 2 of the important ones are on the screen to the left, which is the main ticket hall, with the lantern and the column, as you can see, and also the intermediate concourse with the eye that's shown on the image on the right, allowing that area to be flooded with light. And there's also mention in the listing of the entrance as well, as we can see here. Now, just to recap, the scheme or the station itself, when it was designed to have a building over the top. That's why the entrance is there. That's why there's structural elements within the station itself to have a building. It's just taken a few years for this come to pass. Just another reminder, appreciate not everyone will be at the meeting, but this was the scheme that the committee resolved to grant. And as you can see, the entrance, the prominence of the entrance is maintained, with the building, while tall, recessed quite some way behind it. That's the student block, and just to the left of that, you can see the affordable block. So there would be changes to the lantern, which was mentioned in the previous meeting, and to the column, and these are shown here. So on the left of the image is the current column, and on the right is the proposed column. So it would be about 50 centimeters wider. It would need to be that to provide structural support to the building above it, and the lantern would be also remade. The column would also be clad in steel, so that's a CGI of the building as proposed. So in the report itself, we've detailed how officers, planning officers, design conservation officers consider that there would not be any harm to the listed building. Historic England had identified some harm because of the change, principally to the column and the lantern. They've advised that we, or the committee, take into account the public benefits of the proposal in weighing that harm. They have said it's less than substantial harm. The public benefits are set out in the main report, which is appended to the committee reports, the supplementary committee reports, and it's about delivering the public realm and delivering the affordable homes. So our recommendation to the committee is for you to confirm the approval of the scheme.
Thank you very much. And just for committee members, Councillor Banbury asked a previous question about who the RP was likely going to be for the previous application. In this case, the RP we think is likely to be the council.
Yes.
Yeah, I think the idea is that the homes would be managed by Styles House TMO alongside the building they currently manage. Any further questions? Okay, let us move. Are there any objectors to the application present in the room that would like to come forward and address us? No? In that case, do we have the applicants or the applicants' agents that would like to discuss anything? That's fine. I can see you there, so in case we do have any questions later, you are available to us. That's very helpful. Do we have any supporters of the scheme that live within 100 metres of the site? Do we have a ward councillor present that would like to speak? Councillor Von Wiese, would you like to come forward? You know the form of these things, but I'm going to ask you to formally introduce yourself and then I'll give you 3 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chair. Councillor Irina Van Wiese Borough and Bankside Ward. I would like to speak on behalf of a number of our residents who have launched objections. I would like to firstly say that as ward councillors, we do not wish to object to the scheme as such. We very much welcome the addition of affordable and social housing. However, we would like to note that there have been serious concerns by residents about the consultation, or rather the lack of it, regarding the new proposals, particularly from other council blocks around, notably in addition to Styles House, which is right next to the development. Of course, there are Vaughan House, Rowland Hill House, and previously also objections from the Rochester Estate. So this is regarding long-term impact on daylight, noise, additional footfall and use of the green space in Nelson Square, lack of active consultation with any of Nelson Square via letter regarding the proposed plans. I will not go into detail, there's quite a lot on light and sun assessment. And then in the short and medium term, proposed construction times of 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. daily, Monday to Friday, and 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. on Saturday, building works for what seems to be an unspecified time, as the timeline now seems to be out of date, with high throughput of HGVs disrupting the area. And finally, in the longer term, we are concerned about significant demographic change. This, together with the former Crown Court development we just heard about, and of course the Bankside House redevelopment, means a huge influx of students. I have nothing against students. My daughter is a student. We need homes for students. But I just wanted to point out that this is a significant change to the demographics, and there have been problems reported in the past. So I would like to know, particularly from the developers, how they respond to all of those concerns and whether any mitigating action is possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Councillor Von Wiese? Councillor Seaton.
Consultation. Were you briefed by officers prior to the commencement of the consultation period? And secondly, were you given a schedule of who would be consulted? That's my first question. To answer the question first of all.
Right. So apparently there were only 14 comments. I was told by one of the objectors, resident at Roland Hill House.
Sorry, forgive me for interrupting, Chair, but my question to you is whether or not you were briefed and informed of those who will be consulted and the period over which they will be consulted. Were local ward members briefed? My question.
Not to my knowledge. So we have had apparently no active engagement via letters. I haven't seen any either. We have been, obviously, as ward councillors, we have had notification when we have seen the plans, but we have not seen any engagement with residents. We've also had complaints about the difficulty on signing into the planning page, not a new complaint. And apparently, apart from Styles House, there was very little engagement.
So ward members have not been consulted on both the application or indeed the consultation exercise that we carried out. You've not received notification. I'm just repeating what you've said. You've not formally been informed. Secondly, what you're now receiving are complaints from residents who have, I'm assuming, consultation meetings have occurred, but they were not invited to the consultation meeting. Is that what the issue is here?
Sorry, correction. We have been informed as ward councillors. We did have the plans. We did try also to do outreach to residents. However, the residents say that they have not received any proactive consultation, any letters. There may or may not have been consultation meetings. I have not seen any invitations to that personally. And this is why the residents claim there have been few objections raised formally.
Can I just pick up on that, just so that I'm clear for when we pass questions back? Is that on this application as it now stands, or on the previous application that was already approved?
On this application.
So on this application subsequent to the listing,
Correct.
rather than the application we agreed in March. So they did feel as if they'd been consulted in March. Is that fair?
I don't know about the early application in March, but this is specifically about the current application.
All right. Okay. Because they are the same application, but it's just about, yes. Okay. But you're saying that they feel they weren't consulted on the early application and effectively the one that we
That's
approved
correct.
in March. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Any further question? I guess just a question about construction. Did we? I'm just trying to remember. We had conditions about construction management plan, didn't we, when we approved this previously? Yeah. Could you just remind us about what we were doing on the construction management plan, sir?
I think there was a condition for the construction management plan to be submitted for approval prior to works commencing.
Thank you. And can I ask, are we going to make sure that is shared with ward councillors before it is approved? I think that'd be a helpful safeguard in this case.
Yes, we can certainly do that.
I would be very kind. Thank you. No further.
Okay. Any further questions for the ward councillor? I mean, I note the points that were made about the impact on Nelson Square and the issue about daylight and sunlight. We definitely considered those at the previous committee, so that has been something we've considered previously. But thank you for raising that. So that's helpful to know. Thank you. Okay, well, Councillor Von Wiese, we will allow you to return to the seating area. Are there any questions arising from that members would like to ask officers or go back to the applicants on? Councillor Seaton.
Yes, if officers, I'm trying to find in the file. Typically, there is a list of addresses that have been said in notification. Can you just remind us where in the file I would find which page?
Yeah, it's 290 on the sorry, it's 290 on the top and 141 at the bottom of the page.
So yes, it was done as part of the application that was approved in March, but obviously this is the same application that's come back. And what's helpful this time is we didn't, when we previously considered it, have that image or those drawings. So I think given the issue about listing, it's helpful that we can now kind of see a bit more clearly what the impact will look like, because that wasn't clear when we considered this previously. And I have to say that for me, that is less a significant change than I feared even when we approved it. That does feel quite restrained as a solution, and it does feel as if it's probably not going to be something that most people even notice after these works are completed. Richard, you're indicating.
Only that we still have the listed building application to consider when it actually comes in. So we still have to grant it listed building consent further down the line. We're not doing that this evening. We're only granting the planning permission. So you will get to comment again should it actually come to committee. But I suspect it won't need to.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any further questions or points anybody wants to raise? Councillor Bamby.
I just wanted to make a general point about consultation. Councillor Van Foster made a point about consultation. I was at a neighbourhoods meeting with some officers and officers from the regeneration team talking about consultation and the kind of robust consultation processes applicants have to go through. And time again, residents were saying that these measures are not being followed through. So I don't know what's happening, but it's a widespread feeling. But then I come to planning committee and it's like they've done this, they've done that. So I don't know where the gaps are, but clearly residents across, not just in this specific situation, are feeling like consultation measures aren't being followed by applicants. And then at planning committee, it seems like they are being followed. So I just don't know where the gap is, but I just thought I should share that feedback because it was felt very strongly at these neighbourhoods regeneration meeting.
I mean, my reflection on that is that often people that are unhappy with an application will always say that the reason they're unhappy is because they've not been consulted enough, even if they themselves have responded. And I think sometimes people hope that consultation will be a process by which they get substantial changes to the application, which sometimes obviously they do, and sometimes they don't. But I think the key for us in terms of consultation is have they been asked, not what the response has been once they provide an answer to that. And that's obviously something we need to be mindful on all of this. And as I said, we do have a list of who's been consulted. I mean, I do sometimes, it is always worth checking, I'd say to committee members on who's been consulted, but they do appear to be a substantial number of addresses that were properly consulted on this, would be my view in this case. Councillor Seaton.
I'm bound to just to pick up on that. It is important, and I'm very conscious that it's a sort of common refrain that we experience. The documentation is pretty robust, you see, and I wonder, and maybe I should have. But I didn't know it could be here, but I suppose if in another world, I would have asked for a receipt of some kind, proof of delivery, of at least maybe a sample number, at least to test that robust that delivery was made to those blocks, or at least one address that there's a proof of delivery. And that might help to raise confidence that every effort's been made to ensure the addresses within 100 meters or so of the application site are being consulted. I don't know if that practice still continued, but it's always useful. Always useful.
I mean, it's not in the current report, which is an addendum to the report that was brought in March. But you'll be aware there's a development consultation charter which we do ask developers to follow, and certainly this applicant followed that development consultation charter, and part of that is auditing what they've done and what changes they've made in response to consultation. That was contained in the main report. I mean, I totally take Councillor Bamby's point that doesn't always get through to everybody, but as a local authority, which we have amended in the last year and a half, largely in response to feedback, from residents, particularly about getting access to the early consultation kind of proposals from developers. I mean, it's something myself and Dipesh and Richard emphasise in pre-application meetings about the importance of not just following that in the letter, but in the spirit of what it's trying to do. And we certainly do encourage things like door knocking rather than just handing out leaflets or having a meeting late on a Tuesday evening that maybe nobody will come to. So being a bit more active, and these guys certainly gave us their audits of what they had done to try and meet our development consultation charter.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments or observations? In that case, I'd like us to move to the motion. So I'd like to move that we adopt the officer's recommendations as set out in paragraphs 1 to 4 of the report, set out on pages 139 and 140 of the main agenda pack. So firstly, the Planning Permission be granted for the application, subject to conditions, the completion of a Section 106 legal agreement and referral to the Mayor of London. Secondly, the Director of Planning Growth be authorised under delegated authority to make any minor modifications to proposed conditions arising out of the detailed negotiations, which may include variation and additions of conditions as draft. And thirdly, Planning Committee, in making its decision, has due regard to the potential equalities impacts outlined in the Officer Report to the 5th of March 2025, Planning Committee A. And fourthly, if by the 30th of June 2026, the 106 legal agreement has not been completed, the Director of Planning Growth be authorised to refuse planning permission, if appropriate, for the reasons set out in paragraphs 376 to 382 of the March report. Does any member of the committee wish to second this? Councillor Bamby. I'm going to ask members how they wish to vote on this matter. Councillor Seaton.
For, Chair.
Councillor Bamby.
For, Chair.
Councillor Richard Livingstone. I'm also voting for that. So the motion is carried and permission is granted. So that brings us to the end of today's meeting. Safe journey home, everybody. Take care. And if I don't see you before, have a very Merry Christmas.